North American Sales at Fleet Cost and Care. Hope you guys have enjoyed what you've seen so far. As we mentioned during our introductory session this morning on Sales Assistant, we're going to go through a more deep dive and training led by Andrew Lodge. And at this point, I am going to turn it over to him. We're also going to be taking questions during the session through the Cvent chat or app. So we'll be getting those as they come in. We're going to hold off until the very end to answer those questions, just because don't want to interrupt Andrew or mess up with his flow, or he might answer those questions later on in the presentation. But again, feel free to ask any questions that come to mind during this, and we'll make sure we get to those towards the very end. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to Andrew.
Thanks, Jack. Once again, thank you everybody for setting aside your time, spending a little bit of time with us. And like Jack said, I got a presentation planned, so I'm just gonna kind of forge ahead and power through. Jot your questions down. Feel free to add them to the chat, and then we're gonna do our best to get every single question answered here in this hour. If for some reason there's something I don't get to or I miss, feel free to email me, Jack, Matt, when we're done. And, we're really committed. We want to make sure that you get all the answers you need to get this up and going. There's a lot of details involved in all of our dry rehearsals so far. I start to talk, and sometimes I talk a little too fast, and sometimes I get lost in the details. We understand there is kind of a bewildering number of details involved in this. So we'll make the slides available later. Feel free to ask any questions. We're committed to making this work well for everybody and save everybody some time. So without further ado, we're going to jump in and pick up where we left off, some of the more under the hood details for making this work in your system. So as a recap of this morning, we went through what tasks are, how I can look them up, the basics of how they work in entering them, and then kind of a first look at email, and then a first look at Atom. So this afternoon, we're going to spend a little bit of time on the administrative setup. There's a couple of details in here that are going to be important to get right. Then we're going to look a little bit closer at dates. We're going to look a little bit closer at emailing. We're going to look a little bit closer at assigning. And then, like we said, we're going to spend a little bit of time trying to get through everybody's questions. So getting started, first step is the administrative setup. We've got to get it turned on in your system. So once you've been updated to 580 or better, you're going to have to go in and turn this on. So the place you'll do that is where a lot of you as administrators have already spent a bunch of time, is going to be that set system default screen. And you're going to go in here to the screen. We've made this features tab at the end. And then it's going to allow us to enable you to use features, but not impose them upon you without you deciding that it's time to go. So from this features tab, turn on Sales Assistant. And then the next thing you'll need to do is exit and restart NextGen. And so we've made this message for you up top. There's a lot of administrative functions that take effect at runtime when you load NextGen. So just because you've turned it on, you won't see it until you exit NextGen and open NextGen back up. So next thing to do after you've turned it on, close, open back up, is there's going to be a little bit of work to do in menu security and profile screen settings. And just as a reminder, this is not NextGen specific, but system-wide. Do menu security first. If you do profile screen settings first, you can turn something off and then hide that menu, and then you will not be able to access the thing that you turned off. So it can be a little confusing to find if you do those out of order. So go up to the admin menu security screen. You'll get this screen right here. And then the most relevant fields to look at are going to be those two fields under maintain Sales Assistant. The two basic ones there, that you can see there is task setup and task lookup. Task setup is a screen mainly for system administrators and sales managers. And then task lookup is going to be for everybody who's going to use Sales Assistant. And in a little bit, we're going to look a little bit closer about how you as an administrator may want to use the task setup to make it work right. For the purposes of this picture on menu security, that's going to be the differential, is administrators and potentially executives and sales managers are going to want to have access to task setup. Users are going to want to have access to task lookup. And then if there are those profiles that you that don't need to use Sales Assistant, you could disable those both for that particular profile. So, and then briefly, you might also need to look at your maintain customers menu security settings and your enter quotes menu security settings. Just because since a task is a sub item of a customer or a quote, if a particular user can't access quotes, they won't be able to access Sales Assistant. It was pretty unlikely that anybody's going to need to make very many adjustments to that. If there is a persona who does not need to access Sales Assistant, you probably already have them turned off to access customers or quotes. So the next place we need to look is the profile screen settings. And this is one of the main screens that I made PowerPoint presentations, so you don't have to wait for it to load, because as many of you know, this one can take a long time to load. And there's a few pieces in here that you're gonna potentially need to adjust and control. One of them is gonna be the enter quote screen. And if you look down, you can see this whole tasks tab down there underneath enter quotes. And it's not as likely, I'll make that a little bit bigger for everybody. It's not real likely that one particular profile is going to need some piecemeal setup where some attributes of tasks are turned on and others are turned off. What is more likely in this screen is that if there's some profiles or personas that don't need to use Sales Assistant, but they do need to use customers or quotes, you just might want to turn the entirety of the task tab off for that persona. And that one's pretty variable from organization to organization. And if anybody has questions on that, like how to set up a persona or which one needs access, that's one that would be great for a sidebar conversation later. Feel free to email me or email support, and we can work with you on setting that up right. Next piece administratively to get this up and running in your system is going to be types and priorities. And you're going to do that in that maintain Sales Assistant, and this is going to be in the task setup menu. So that task setup menu is going to open this screen, and you see right across the top, you've got three tabs. You've got the record type tab, and you've got the priorities tab, and then you've got this types tab. So if I'm in the record type tab, which you see up there, kind of upper middle on your screen, and I've got customer row highlighted. If I slide over and now click priorities, which you can see there on the top right, I'm going to get the priorities that I have established for customer type records. And I've got a few priorities there, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can read what they are. And if I was to go back to the record type tab, slide down and highlight quote, which you can see faintly there. It's highlighted for you a little bit there. And then I go over and I click the priorities tab. I'm going to see the quote priority types that I've made. And that's so that you can set a different prioritization scheme for your customer level activities versus your quote level activities. And then the same thing will happen. If I'm back at the record types and I go down, I got work order quote, highlight that screen, click the priorities tab. And at this point, that screen is blank because we're going to walk through that together for how to build out your priorities. So I've expanded that screen. Here we're on the priorities for work order quotes. And I could type Control A at this point, or I could click Add Priority. You see up there at the top, and it's going to give me another line. And here I can type in contracted. Maybe that's the priority that I'm going to give for a work order quote. Some of them are going to have to do with contracted labor. We're already under contract to provide service to a customer for this. And I can go through, add another one, call it Grow Department, add another one, call it Grow Company. And now with that set of priorities built, my users are going to see this set of priorities in their drop-down list when they're entering their tasks. Now I can also, which you see highlighted there on the top, that move line we've got highlighted, I can adjust those because if we back up, that list right there, contracted, Grow Department, Grow Company, is going to show up in order that I've put them on the priority grid. So I might want to change the order that they go in. So I can click Move Line, and then just follow the directions there at the top in the bold. It wants me to double click the line that I want to move. Then it's going to want me to double click the line I want to move it in front of. And then I've moved the bottom line up in front. So now they come in a different order. The next thing that I like to do in thinking of terms of prioritization is give a real quick intuitive, maybe a B, C, or 1, 2, 3 prefix to our priorities. And the reason for that is that's going to not only determine what I see in the drop-down list when my users are going to enter the details of their task, but also later, if I go to my task lookup screen and I sort by priorities, it's going to make it real easy to, to group those priorities together, but also group them in the order that you want to see them. So since I gave these 1, 2, 3 prefixes and then I sort by priority, I get to see my highest priority items at the top together. And I can really just focus my attention as a manager on what are the highest level priority tasks. And I'm going to want to target those first. Types, the mechanics of how to enter types works exactly like priorities. So I don't want to belabor you with going through the same thing again. Mechanically, it works just the same. I just came up with a couple of notes here that I think about when I come up with what should I write as types. And those are the things, and Jack talked about those a lot this morning as far as some of his experiences trying to do sales without a CRM. And it can get kind of confusing, like in terms of follow-up. Did I forget to do this? What I need to do? Maybe you as a sales manager want to follow up with one of your sales staff. Hey, did you follow up on that? So fill in the blank right there. Those things that you find yourself wanting to follow up on, those should probably be types. It may also be what kind of things you want a log of. We've all heard it said, in other kind of CRM platforms, and I know Jack mentioned this morning as well, that, if you didn't log it, it didn't happen. So what are the kinds of things that you want a log of amongst your steering team and your executive team? What kind of completion trends are you going to want to track now over the course of a quarter, a year, a half year? What kind of things are you going to watch the completion trends of? And then also, what kind of things does your staff need to group together? I know just in the past, I'd have some salesmen and they were just amazing, energetic, cared about their customers like you wouldn't believe, going. And then, and I know a lot of you go through this as well. You've got a few phone calls to make, and it's important. These are prospecting calls. And then the mundane details of the afternoon get in your way, and the stress of the crane's double booked, and now I'm not in a good frame of mind to make those phone calls. So what kind of things would you want to group together? Now, if you're in between job walks and you have an extra half an hour now you can fit in your phone calls. So what do you want to group together? What do you want to track the completion of? What do you want to follow up on? Just some things that we think about when we designed the types feature of Sales Assistant. Next thing administratively that we're going to get into is what does the active and inactive do on that first record type. So this is back into that same task setup screen in that first tab of record types. And you can see here on the first line, I've got customer record type set to active. And then if you look over on the far right of your screen, you can see that the tasks tab is there. On this second line, with the customer tab set to inactive, bring my laser pointer up, you can see that the task tab is not there. So what that record type feature lets you do is maybe you want to selectively enable or disable Sales Assistant for different modules in your system. Just because you want to use it for customers and work order quotes does not mean that you have to use it for trucking or crane rental quotes. We wanted to give you a little bit of flexibility there. If you disable them all, then the Atom users may have problems using it. So if you find yourself with them all disabled, it may just be better to turn off Sales Assistant. One other thing to be mindful of as you're working in this setup screen is if you turn Sales Assistant on and you make Customer tab active, and now your staff has been going, and you have several hundred customer type tasks that your staff has recorded, if you now go inactivate customer type tasks for them, they may not be able to access those tasks. So if you do try to inactivate something that has a bunch of tasks already associated, we're going to toss up this warning to you just to help you be mindful that that may not be the best approach. Okay, now we're going to look a little bit closer at dates. We looked at this a little bit this morning. This is just actually one of my slides from this morning. And the details of a task has a due date and a reminder date. And the search from NextGen, we look for due date or reminder date. And we look for the due date or reminder date in our searches from Adam. So this is a kind of a blown up view of that details pane. And this is just an example of a task that I made. You can see down at the bottom, I created it on 10/5, and I gave it there in the left couple of columns. I gave it a due date of October 30th and a reminder date of 10/12. And the reason we did that is maybe something like, maybe this quote is for a refinery or an outage, somewhere that's, pretty highly regulated. And they're going to want to know our safety plan. They're going to want to know our work plan as part of our bid package. They're not just looking for the cheapest price. They're looking for a good price for a good safety plan. And maybe for this particular quote, that safety plan is important. If it's due on the 30th, I don't want to remind myself about it on the 30th. I want to set a reminder well in advance to do this. So we just gave you another date there. It's the due date and the reminder date. That way, when I go in my task lookup screen here, if I select due or reminder date, and then I give myself a whole week that I'm looking through, I will see that safety plan is due on my task. I will see that safety plan show up on my task list for the week of the 12th, even though it's not due until the 30th. By way of metaphor and analogy, we want to manage our tasks the same way that we have our dispatchers manage our jobs. So that's why, by way of metaphor, if we look at display job schedule, we got our schedule screen, and we've trained our dispatchers to look at your schedule constrained by dates. And that's really what we're doing here with our task screen, is look at my tasks constrained by my dates. And then just like I'm kind of continuing the job schedule metaphor, just like the specifics of a job entered accurately will make it show up on my job schedule, the specifics of a task entered accurately will make it show up on my task lookup schedule, whether I'm looking up my staff's task as a sales manager or I'm looking up my own tasks as a salesperson. All right. Next piece to look at is emailing. And the first thing we want to do is we want to look at some of the differences between the way emailing works for Sales Assistant versus the way emailing works in some other modules. So made it to focus the conversation. If we look at our system default screen in eDocuments, we see here we've got choices to email from either device or system or both. And that's really designed for, a lot of times our crane operators, our riggers are going to want to email tickets to customers, and they're going to want to email their certifications. And so if I'm in the field, I might get a message like this, right? And in this case, do you want to send your certifications from Adam or the device? Another way to look at the difference is if I'm a salesperson, I can have a quote, and then I can go view or download my quote. And then at this point, move to the right side of the line. I am outside of Adam working on my device. Now, these are device level controls, right? I can send a file, I can download it. You see their feedback to Google because I swiped that screenshot from a Google device. I can send the file and it's going to give me all of these applications down here. That is not how we're going to manage emails for the sales assistant. All of my emails from sales assistant are going to come from what we have called the Adam account. So if I go to the admin email settings screen, I see the two tabs there, right? I've got the next gen FMS tab that we're seeing on the left, and then I've got the Adam tab that you see on the right. And so if my system is configured that way, every task that I send is going to come from that email address. And there's two pieces of that become important. One is every salesperson that's going to be sending emails from their device needs to have permission to send emails from that account. In fact, when we were testing and developing this, it's one of the things we ran into is I personally did not have access to the account that we had configured in our system, and I couldn't get it to work. So as a system administrator, you may need to work with your IT team and work on your email configurations. If your sales staff are going to need to send emails, notifications about the sales assistant, they're going to need access to that Adam account that's configured in your email settings. The next piece that sending address becomes significant is in the email itself. In this case, it reads like it's coming from Andrew Lodge because in the account that I made this from, I put my own email address in this tab right here. If I had this system configured right here where you see that from name says dispatch JJ Curran Crane, the recipient would say, or the sender would say dispatch JJ Curran Crane. So what that means then is that as you set up your filters and set up your alerts based on emails, you're going to want to use the subject line. And that's one of the reasons why we made the subject line the way that we did. You can see there's brackets around a lot of the words. There's brackets around the word task. There's brackets around what the priority is and what the type is. And what that is it's going to let those strings be really unique for your users. So if I was setting up alerts in my email system, and this would be pretty reasonable that call or follow-up call is going to be a type that, a lot of users may want to set up. Well, if I set up a filter and I call it, just CALL there on the top right, that's not very unique. I'm going to filter a lot of emails that have nothing to do with sales assistant. If on the other hand, I filter it based on dash, space, bracket, call, bracket, space, dash, that's very unique. And I can be pretty sure that I am only filtering, organizing, and alerting myself based on emails that I really, really want to be. Next set of things we're going to look at is assigning and assigners and how the pass off between users is going to work. So kind of as a reminder, looking back at the details, I've got myself there. I'm the default assignee if I create a new task. I can go in. This is just a copy of the slide we looked at earlier this morning. I put in those details and I pass the task off to Jack. See right there, I've given it to him. And then I can filter and look for my tasks based on those assignees designated for the tasks. And one of the problems for a lot of us, and we hinted at this a little bit this morning, one of the problems is sometimes the assignee list is just huge, depending on how many users you have defined. It could be an unrealistically large number of people. So what we're going to do is in a drop-down list, when you go to pass a task off to somebody else, we're going to filter that based on shared company, yard, and department. And so for any particular user, they're going to have a set of yards, a set of companies, a set of departments.
Oh. Hey, Andrew. I believe your sound, I don't know if you were speaking through headphones before, but now it seems like you're speaking a little bit further away from the microphone.
Okay. How's that?
That's better.
Okay. So if we look right here, this is a hypothetical set of 4 users we've got. And, I've got that regional manager there in orange on the top left. And, the set of companies for that regional manager is all companies and all departments. So the regional manager and that national crawler manager there on the kind of in gray there on the bottom left, they're going to see each other, right? They've got a yard in common because the national crawler manager has all yards. They're going to have a department in common because the regional manager has all departments. And they're going to see each other because they've both got all companies. Now, the 2 users in this setup who may not see each other, this regional manager will probably not see, they will not see salesperson B because they do not have a yard in common. The regional manager, in this case, that regional manager is from the Midwest. They're only responsible for Detroit and Chicago yards. The salesperson from Atlanta, they have no yard in common. They don't need to see each other. So we're going to filter that out just to take away some of the noise so that your users don't have to scroll too much. Likewise, salesperson B is a crane rental salesperson from Atlanta. They're not going to see salesperson A, who is a rigging salesperson in Detroit. They don't have either a yard or a department in common. So if, as your users go to pass tasks back and forth to each other, if somebody needs to see somebody in their drop-down list, you may need to do some adjustments to your department, yard, and company configuration. So with that, we will go ahead and open it up to questions.
Thank you, Andrew. So we had a couple questions that came in. I'll go ahead and ask the first one, which I'm not sure if we have the answer to yet. But so on the roadmap, is there a plan to add call report functionality, which would allow reporting of dollar value of potential future work by customer, region, and/or industry? I know we talked about the reports that are going to become made available in the very near future. I think in the next couple of months, written through Telerik. So that's kind of our newer report writing tool. I am not. That might be a question for David Thornton to answer. Andrew, do you know off the top of your head if there's going to be a report with that type of functionality for kind of tracking, I guess, calls back to I guess the value of potential, how many calls were made and the value of potential quotes or opportunities?
Yeah. In the Power BI report, we have ways that we can tie together tasks to dollar amount values of the quotes that they're associated with. And then we are also actively working on a reporting for this that will come based on the Telerik platform. So those are a couple on the Power BI side, it already exists. And then on some of the other reporting stuff, yes, those are kind of active pursuits that we've got going right now. And I know that AG and David are going to go through some of the roadmap items in a little bit more detail tomorrow. So the short answer is yes. The longer version is stay tuned.
All right. Thank you very much. And definitely, if you guys have thoughts or feedback or ideas for further reports that you'd like to see, definitely let us know. The more detail and the more feedback we get, the better. Moving on to the next quote or question, which is kind of similar to that. Is there a report to show task or just the task lookup?
Yeah, and I think that's I think we talked in tangent to that question in answer to the last one. Currently, there is the Power BI set of reporting that, and I don't know how much more you want to talk about that right now, Jack. I know you talked about it a bunch this morning. And then there's active projects to work on a different set of reports.
Exactly. So right now, the only available way to look those up is that task lookup within NextGen. Currently, again, there is the Microsoft Power BI option, and then there's going to be more reports that will be added in the coming months.
I'll pick up another couple of questions I see there.
Sure.
I'll flip these up to the current one. One of them is, can I email myself a task? And currently, as it stands right now today, the current answer is no. We designed the email notification is to let, and in all my test scenarios, Jack, you were the person that I was assigning tasks to. We wanted those to be like to notify somebody else that something got put on their plate. And our thinking at the time was, it's not necessary for me to tell myself that I put something on my own plate. Now, what this does get into, maybe could I manage my tasks and could I look them up in Outlook or whatever my email client is and things like that. So that question has come up a couple of times before, and it is one that we're actively considering is what's the best way for self-notification or active notification. It's a really good question, and I know that AG and David are going to talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. But the short answer is, as it stands today, no, emails will only go to somebody else when I pass a task off to them.
Thank you. And then, go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, you kind of touched on it a little bit, so I'll move this up to the next question, which is, how do you set up an alert in your Outlook when a task comes to your email? I believe we do have kind of a Word document or a guide that we've created for companies that do want to do this. I mean, again, our thought was that, with the My Tasks or different ways of seeing those tasks, you'd be doing it within NextGen or Atom. But some people might want to have, rely on tasks in Outlook. And as you kind of mentioned, that you can set up those alerts or those rules in your Outlook email or other email, where if it has something in the subject line, it'll automatically create a task. So that's something I think we'd have to more or less show you or provide the guide, the details of that guide of how to set that up or speak with you directly. But that can be done if you prefer to have, like I said, when a task is set up in NextGen or Atom, it's going to automatically email you. You can have that email automatically create a task in Outlook. Now, if you complete the task in Outlook, it's still going to be an open task in NextGen or Atom. Just FYI, there's not like that kind of two-way sharing of information, but that can be done if you prefer to see a task list in Outlook.
Yeah, and that's that's good, and that's that's a really good point, and that's one of the things that we want to be really, really mindful of is creating parallel workflows where, pretty soon if I'm texting you and I'm emailing you and I'm walking down the hall and talking to you, at some point I could overwhelm you with information. Where do you go to close out your tasks? Do you close them out in your Outlook client? Do you close them out in your Gmail or whatever other email web portal client you may use? Do you close them out in NextGen? Those are really good questions, and they're ones that we're actively working on right now. And one of the reasons that you hear, even in this conversation right now, one of the reasons that you hear us being a little more methodical about it is because we do want to be really mindful about, confusing everybody and adding just more and more and more workflows of information to pay attention to. So, it's one of the reasons why, like, even hearkening back to that's kind of too big of a word for today, I guess. But I don't know what I come up using a word like that for. But going back to what's that?
I said we're following.
Going back to the subject line, it's one of the reasons that we made it all weird like that with all the brackets and the strings is so that everybody could pull the noise out. Nobody needs email inbox just blown up. I'm going to pull up another question. Oops, I accidentally pulled up two questions. I apologize. The one that I just skipped, because I apologize, everybody, I pushed the button twice. The question is, will it be available on jobs and invoices? I would say that is another excellent question. In fact, it gets asked with almost every conversation I've had about this is, Will it be available on jobs, work orders, invoices? And we are actively looking at those, considering them, working on them. We absolutely designed it to be able to be extensible um, and to be expanded upon later. So we want to, when we do those and which module we will introduce next, we're really interested in hearing your all's feedback. As our partners, our customers, and our users, where would you like to see it next? We don't want you to wait to get the CRM specific functions, right? The customer's quotes, work order quotes. We didn't want everybody to wait to use the smaller case scenario until we had it developed for everything. So we wanted to roll this out now as it's developed today, and then which step we take next, and the one after, and the one after. Please fire away and let us know. Email me. We're absolutely interested in developing this iteratively and expanding it later. When and which order they will come in, we definitely want to hear from you all.
Definitely. I concur with, or I agree with that answer. I'll go on to the next one that's approved here that's showing up. Is there a file links functionality for each task?
There is not a file links functionality for the task, but there is a file links functionality for the customer or the quote that is the parent record of that task. So anytime that I am working on a task, I will also be actively working on that quote or customer, right? Because I'm going to be in the quote or the task tab of that customer or quote. So I would put my file links at this point in that parent record.
Yeah, either the quote or it could be under customer file links. At this point, there hasn't been any talk about adding file link functionality specifically for a task.
Right.
All right. I was going to go ahead and move to the next question. Can I look up tasks by assigner as well as assignee? And I would say yes, you can from within NextGen the task lookup screen.
Yep.
Okay, easy enough question there.
Right.
Next one is, can anyone close a task, or does it have to be that person it was assigned to?
That is a very good question and very interesting. At this point, CRUD rules, right? Create, read, update, delete. At this point, system-wide, CRUD rules are based on user profile and persona. So if, let's say Jack and I are working and I'm a dispatcher and Jack is a salesperson, any of y'all as the system administrator could, if you were the system administrator in our system, you could restrict my ability to complete a task, but you would be restricting my ability to complete everybody's tasks. What we do not have today is a way to control user to user access. It is one thing that we're actively considering on. It's an excellent question. But as it stands right now, if I have the ability to close or to complete tasks in NextGen, I would have the ability to close Jack's tasks in the same way that I do have the ability to close my own tasks. And I would add and highlight on this, that's, I know in my experience using CRM software brand X or Y, in my experience with other CRM software, I also have the ability to do that. So, I could go into the CRM, I can go into our CRM software package and, complete any of Jack's tasks today. So, and that's more than just NextGen. Definitely interested in hearing feedback from y'all if that's a problem or if that is something that you would like to see expanded on, that kind of user to user CRUD rules access. Feel free to drop me a line.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Okay, the next question is, can I look up tasks by customer, which includes the tasks that are created at the quote level?
You can. That lookup would happen best in Atom. So what you would do is, in fact, I will change my screen sharing around a little bit and see if I can bring this up for everybody. So if I'm following the question right, you're seeing my mobile screen
Yes.
up here, right? So I believe the question was, can I look up tasks by customer, which includes tasks that are created at the quote level? So where I would do that is I would come in here. This is I'll back up and show everybody the string of links I'm taking. I'll click my tasks icon here. Then I come to my detailed lookup screen. I will look to do that search. I will look up quote-based tasks. I'm going to click on the magnifying glass right here to do a detailed lookup. Okay, then what I would need to do is go in here to the search. I clicked the search by field. I don't know if you guys saw that or if I did it too fast. I'll bring up my laser pointer just to make it. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, sorry everybody. So this is Signy field. I will click there. And then I can come down here and select customer. And then I can type customer right in there. So I'm looking up quotes that have whatever string I type here in the customer field as their search criteria.
And
go ahead, Jack.
I was going to say also, I mean, if you're more on the sales manager side and you're looking at tasks that have been assigned, I believe from that task lookup, you can sort by the customer or filter by the customer and then see which tasks are attached to quotes and which ones are attached to the customer. I would say, is that correct?
Ask that one more time.
Sure. In like a task lookup screen in NextGen, if you wanted to search by just a particular customer, and then kind of see all the tasks for that customer as attached or that are created to quotes under that customer.
Right. And I'll bring my NextGen screen over here for everybody to look at.
Just in case that's what they might be referring to.
Right. Oh, I apologize, everybody. My screen sharing. I wasn't set up to switch on my screen.
Yeah, no worries. I think that is possible though. Either doing kind of a filter by customer or by sorting the lookup by customer, and then you can see any records under that customer, whether it's just attached to that customer or to the quote. Yeah, if you have it ready or can pull it up quickly, but otherwise we could always go to the next question, then kind of circle back on this if needed.
Yeah. The next question is, can an additional status be added? And that is an excellent question. And I just wrote it down for myself. It is something that can be done. We would have to develop that. Right now, the only two statuses are open and closed. So I wrote it down for myself to make kind of a configurable set of statuses later on down the road.
For sure. Yeah, I know maybe something might be like in progress or something like that.
Right.
So definitely a good question or a good idea, something that we're going to, we can definitely consider. And the more people that want something like that, again, speak up, because that's how we know what to prioritize in terms of future development, kind of hearing from you guys.
Right. Okay.
I'll go ahead and if you want, I'll move up to the next question. Can you resend a task to get another notification sent if you pass the time it was if you pass the time it was due, or do you have to create a new task? And I think that's a pretty good question. I mean, yeah, obviously if you send an email and you see that someone hasn't responded to it, then you maybe want to send, okay, I'm going to send them another email somehow without having to create or change that task.
Yeah, and you will get, we will send another notification every time an update or a modification is made to a task. So if you pass the time that it's due, if you change the due date, as long as that task is assigned to a different person, we will send another notification.
Okay, that's good to know.
So, and that's the same whether it's, you can make the smallest, most minutest of changes to the screen, right? If you go in and type a period in the comments section and save it, it will ask you if you want to resend a notification. Now that's pretty small change. We're not going to send notifications because we added a dot to the comment section. But what it does give me the ability to do, if I'm a sales manager and I've given you a task, I can go in and write a comment at the end of that task, like, hey, Jack, just wanted to follow up on this task. How did it go? Do you need any help? Save it, and it's going to send you another notification email that your task has been changed with that new appended comment.
Got it. Well, thank you. And then right now we have one other question in the list right now, and that is, can you limit the assigners or assignees for tasks? The list is very long if you use all your users in NextGen. Can something be set up like salespeople have set up? Side note, we do need this for receivers too. So appreciate that feedback for sure. And then, Andrew, I think that kind of goes to your question about how you could limit or filter who could be assigned, who the assigners or assignees could be based on department or at the department or yard levels.
Yeah, I'll back up here.
Because that was a question that did come up before as we kind of started testing or rolling out. Some companies where, if you have 20 or 30 salespeople, it's going to be quite a lot of people to try to toggle through or scroll through to get the right one.
Right. And those are the filters right there that are going to limit that list of assignees, is company, yard, and department. So in this particular case, I've got my user profile set up. The only department that I've got myself set up for is heavy lift. So if you, Jack, were set up in the crane rental department and I was set up in the heavy lift department, but neither of us had the other one's department in our list of my departments, we wouldn't see each other in the list of assignees on the drop-down list.
Got it. Okay. I at this point, I think this is the questions that have come through. I don't see any others. Of course, as you guys might have others that come to mind, definitely let Andrew know, myself know. Of course, you can always contact us at support@fleetcostcare.com. I'm sure you've already heard that a few times, and you're going to hear that some more. We can kind of stay on if there's any other questions at this point, but it looks like we're close, within 10 minutes to the hour. Unless there's any others that come in the next 20 or 30 seconds, I'll say we can go ahead and turn it back over to Matt Reinhardt.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you, everybody, again, for tuning into this afternoon session. We have one more session left for today, the first day of Interface 2.0.
Right. Matt, I knew this was going to happen. There's one more question that came in.
Go ahead with it, guys.
Okay, I accidentally just closed out of the app, so let me pull that back up. Unless you have it there, Andrew. Okay. I can't see it.
I can read the question, guys. The question is push notification through Adam. Is that something on the roadmap?
That is one of the things that we're talking about. I don't want to steal AG's thunder for tomorrow, what he's going to talk about. But yes, push notifications and active notifications is absolutely something on the roadmap. I want to give AG the ability to talk a lot more about that tomorrow. He understands some of the technological challenges behind that, making it work properly for you guys much better than me. So stay tuned, more to follow on that one. It's a good question.
All right, with no other questions coming in, as I was just about to say, we have one more session left today at 3:30 Central Time. It's going to be more of a collaborative session, and it's going to be a customer conversation with one of our longtime customers. So please enjoy your 40 minutes here and join us back for the last session of the day. Thanks again for joining, everyone.